Hello and welcome to Time of Death. I'm your host, Dee.
And I'm your host, Ris.
And we are the hostesses with the mostesses. Ris, please do your spiel.
If you're new here, welcome. We are two nurses that love talking true crime. We like to focus on cases that have a heavy medical influence to them, or cases that feature a medical professional as a perpetrator or a victim.
I just want to give a special shout out to our girl who sent a Instagram message, which was so freaking cute. So her name is Deanna. I hope that I'm saying that right, but she was awesome, reached out, did let us know that Canada does use 911.
Oh.
It was really sweet. So I really appreciated her. It is important information. So just letting our viewers, I know that I speak for both of us when I say this, but I love and Ris loves when people reach out. And Deanna also did let us know a request for a case. So we will be covering that next week. Right? You're covering it next week? Right, Ris?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
She just assumed.
I know.
You're like, she definitely hasn't done her case.
She has not done her case. I have my cases done 3 weeks out.
That's fair.
I'm just kidding. So if you guys do have a specific case in mind, definitely reach out to us and Ris will end up doing it. Also, if there's a case that you want an update on or want to share any insight about, or basically just message us for literally anything at all, anything that you want to share. We definitely do read the messages and we love to hear back and get feedback. So again, thanks, Deanna. That was super cute.
That was super cute.
Super cute. I thought it was really cute.
I think that was our first, is that our first requested case?
That was our first requested
Oh my
case.
God, that was our first requested case.
Yes. So Deanna, that is all. And I really hope I'm saying this right. Deanna. Okay. Well, I'm going to say it both ways. Thank you, Deanna, and thank you, Deanna. And I'm emphasizing the D because we share that initial. All right. So the case tonight is going to be one of the most macabre. I had to look that up. Macabre. I like that word. Macabre.
Tell us what it means.
Grisly. It's one of the more macabre chapters in medical history. It's the story of William Burke and William Hare. Have you heard of this?
No, I don't think so.
So I'm coming with the facts today about these two men whose names are forever linked to murder and body snatching in the 19th century Edinburgh. Edinburgh or Edinburgh?
Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, right?
Edinburgh?
Edinburgh.
Are you talking about in Scotland?
Yeah, Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
Shut up. Edinburgh. Edinburgh. I did not know that. I would never have gotten from the spelling. Edinburgh. What the hell? Where is the ORROW?
You haven't heard of Edinburgh?
I've heard of Edinburgh. I'm just going based off of how it's spelled.
Yeah. It's a little misleading.
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
I would not have gotten that in 1,000 years.
It's a tricky one.
Okay. So, our story begins in the early 19th century in Edinburgh. Not Edinburgh. This is why I'm not good at pronunciation, man.
I know. You're really not.
Edinburgh, a city that was renowned for its medical schools and anatomical studies. The demand for cadavers were insatiable, driven by rapid advancements that were happening in terms of medical knowledge of that time. However, Scottish law really did their very best. Law enforcement did their very best to restrict the sources from which bodies could be obtained for dissection for these medical schools. They ruled that only those who had been executed, suicides, and orphans were legally available to give up their bodies for medical research. And I don't think that they were willingly giving up their bodies, but those bodies could be used.
Okay.
This stringent regulation led to a severe shortage of bodies, which created a lucrative black market for corpses.
Mm-hmm.
So
I see where this is going.
Again, I mentioned that rapid advancement in the medical field was fueling this need for bodies. However, medical schools require bodies for the study of human anatomy. This is essential part for training physicians and overall just advancing medical knowledge. So this black market for bodies was a moneymaker for people who were known as resurrectionists, who were individuals more than willing to exhume recently buried corpses from graveyards and sell them to medical institutions. This practice was known as body snatching and became widespread as the demand again for cadavers was just much, much higher than what the legal supply allowed. Disturbing a grave was considered a criminal offense, as well as taking property from the deceased. However, stealing the body itself was not an offense, which is mind-boggling.
Wow.
As legally, the body didn't belong to anyone.
That's so crazy.
It's a loophole. It's a loophole. So the price per corpse changed depending on the season as well. It was £8 during the summer, where warmer temperatures caused quicker decompensation, and £10 in the winter months, where, and this was explained, where the temperatures were lower, they could store the bodies for longer and able to undergo more dissections.
So it was more expensive in the winter?
Yeah, because it would not decompose as quickly. They would not decompose as quickly.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
They would be able to do more with the body. So grave robbing was so prevalent at this time that morgue cages were designed to protect bodies in their graves. Now, you might hear this and say, what the heck is a morgue cage?
I was thinking that.
Well, I'm going to tell you. They're not mortgages.
Thank you for clarifying.
Morgue cages were heavy iron or iron and stone devices designed to protect graves from body snatchers.
Isn't that so sad they had to cage the body?
Mm-hmm. It's very sad.
Would they cage the casket?
So they would put these complex structures, which again had rods, plates, everything padlocked, over the coffins for about 6 weeks, or basically until the body had sufficiently decayed.
Yeah.
Interestingly, churches oftentimes owned these morgue cages, which they rented them out to the public. It was in this environment that two Irish immigrants, William Burke and William Hare, found a very sinister opportunity.
Oh boy.
They weren't grave robbers, but instead of grave robbing, they turned to murder.
Oh, jeez.
And this was done in an effort to not only make some money, but fuel this demand within the medical community with fresh cadavers. So who were they? William Burke was born in 1792 in Erney, County Tyrone, Ireland. He was one of two sons born to middle-class parents. He and his brother Constantine were very comfortable as kids into adulthood. Both of them went on to join the British Army as teenagers. He served in the Donegal militia until he met and married a woman from County Mayo, where they later settled together. The marriage was very short-lived. In 1818, after an argument with his father-in-law over some dispute with land, ownership of land, he deserted his wife and his family and then moved to Scotland, where he met William Hare. So there's much more information that's known about Burke than Hare. All that was really available about Hare was that he was also born in 1792, most likely in either Newry, County Armagog, or Londonderry, Ireland. He was a laborer who moved to Edinburgh, where he met Burke. Their criminal. Gosh, I have such a hard time. Their criminal activities, or should I say proclivities, began in November 1827, where a lodger named Donald just died of natural causes in November. In an effort to kind of recoup the loss of money, which was about £4 of rent that Donald had owed at that point, both Burke and Hare decided to sell his body to Dr. Robert Knox, who was a prominent anatomist. They removed the body from its coffin, then filled the casket with tanning bark to mimic the weight of the body, and then delivered the corpse to Dr. Knox. He paid them £7 10 shillings, which was a substantial amount of money at that time. 2 months later, they went on to kill together for the first time. This time was another lodger with a fever because, again, they were concerned that this would look bad on their lodging house and people wouldn't want to stay with someone who was sick. So they also went on to sell her body to Dr. Knox. Really, at this point, they were very bold and, really confident. They had been successful. The duo really, at this point, embarked on a killing spree that lasted about 10 months. Their method was very efficient, chillingly so. They would lure the victims to Hare's lodging house, get them drunk, and then suffocate them.
Oh my goodness.
And this technique left no physical evidence. So at that time, it appeared that they had just died of natural causes. And this method would later be termed as Burking. The victims were some of society's most vulnerable, people who were homeless, traveling, and those people who just didn't have a family.
Yeah.
Notable among the victims was Mary Patterson, who was a young woman whom Burke invited to the home. And after a night of drinking, Burke and Hare murdered her and sold her body again to Dr. Knox.
That's not only so wrong and cruel, but it's also so unethical on a medical standpoint.
Well, it was also very chilling because some of Dr. Knox's assistants recognized Mary, but no questions were raised, of course. So this begs the question, Ris, you bring up a great point. Who the heck was Dr. Knox? Dr. Robert Knox was, again, an anatomist and lecturer at the Royal College of Surgeons in Edinburgh. And he was known as someone who was at the forefront of anatomical studies in Britain at that time. He was born in 1791, became a doctor in 1814. However, as a child, he had contracted smallpox and went blind in one eye and was severely disfigured. He served as an army physician at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, followed by postings in England and Southern Africa during the war in 1819 as well. In 1820, he settled in Edinburgh, where he became a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons and again was lecturing on anatomy at that time. He had courses which included dissections of fresh anatomical subjects and had around 400 pupils in his classes. 400 pupils. Again, really was someone at the forefront of anatomical knowledge at that time. It's really horrifying to hear. I think once also you touch on this, Ris, there's such a violation, and a lot of the advancements that were made during that time was done in a really unethical and horrible and awful way, whether it was people being killed or people's graves who were being robbed, or even legally allowing dissections to be done on children who are orphans or people who committed suicide. It's a really awful thing all the way around. Orphans were not murdered, but if they had bodies of orphans, they would donate them.
Wait, who would donate them? Or would they just take them?
If they were not claimed, basically, if they were children, orphan children who had no families, their bodies would be donated to science.
Yeah.
They would be able to legally do dissections. People who committed suicide legally be able to do dissections. It's just really disturbing.
Yeah, not being able to have a say.
Burke and Hare at this point are super confident, but they're also becoming very reckless. As time is going on, they are just not only doing these horrible acts, but they are getting clumsy as well. Sloppy is a good word. In October 1828, they killed Margaret Docherty, who was known as Maggie. This time, their carelessness would be their downfall. Some of the other lodgers became really suspicious after they discovered Maggie's body hidden under a bed and called the authorities, let the police know what was going on. Burke and Hare were arrested, but as we talked about earlier, there really wasn't any physical evidence. The burking left virtually no marks on the body.
Tell us what the burking is again.
So it's basically them getting the patient intoxicated and then suffocating them. So because there was so little physical evidence, getting a conviction was going to be really challenging. In an effort to save himself, Hare testified against Burke in exchange for immunity. So he tossed him under the bus.
He turned.
Burke was found guilty of murder, sentenced to death, and hung on January 28th, 1829. And in a very ironic twist of fate, his body was publicly dissected at the University of Edinburgh, and his skeletal remains are on display to this day. Dr. Knox, again, the doctor that we spoke about earlier, who purchased the bodies, was never prosecuted.
Oh my.
Though his reputation suffered quite a bit.
As it should have.
The public outcry from the Burke and Hare murders led to the Anatomy Act of 1832, which provided legal means for medical professionals to obtain cadavers, which effectively ended the era of body snatching. So this tale not only really highlights the dark past of the medical community as a whole, but also really serves as a grim reminder at the lengths that people will go when they're driven by greed, and that societal demands are always in place. We just not may be aware of them. It's a dark chapter in medical history that, again, underscores the ethical complexities of scientific discoveries. This really, yes, a lot of advancements were made, but at what cost?
Yeah, it hurt a lot of people, and a lot of people who should have, wouldn't have wanted that for themselves if they had had a say, or families had had a say. You know what I mean? It's very, very sad.
It is very sad, and it's also very unsettling.
Yeah.
These people who, when you are a guest is supposed to be a very sacred thing. Like, even throughout history, when someone is a guest in your home, they're supposed to be safe. They're supposed to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And these people were exploited. Mm-hmm. They were taken advantage of. A lot of them were women.
Yeah.
And there was mention that the wives of Burke and Hare were also very aware of what they were doing.
Oh, boy.
So there's a lot of messed up stuff all the way around, any way you cut it.
So how many people did they kill in a you said 10-month period?
10-month period. So overall, William and William were responsible for the murders of 16 people during their killing spree in 1828. All of whom they sold the bodies to Dr. Knox. Down the line, it was determined that Burke did most of the actual killing, and Hare was, quote, the unwilling accomplice, which I don't
Unwilling.
believe for a hot second. I think
He profited from it.
He profited from it, and I think that they both got some sadistic pleasure from it as well.
Why do you think that they got pleasure from it?
I think to have such little regard for human life,
Yeah.
you know, I think it goes beyond a financial incentive. I think that there has to be like a blatant disregard for people, but there was no remorse.
Yeah.
There was no, you know,
No. Yeah.
I think it, and the fact that it was both of them, I think they were probably feeding off of each other.
Yeah. No respect for human life or even in death.
There was none. It's also very disturbing.
Huge violation.
It's all the way around violation.
Yeah.
And the medical community was the one who really was fueling this. But that's all I got.
Great case. See, I actually really enjoyed hearing about that because I've heard, snippets of, I think I've heard this case over the years or stories about this case or this topic. But it was interesting to hear it about this because I know it's happened all over, and it seems like this was a pretty big
This was huge.
time and a period of this. But yeah, that's, and what else? Imagine you're a medical student who's using these cadavers. I wonder how they felt doing it.
It's an excellent point.
Or if they knew. I mean, obviously, on some level, they must have had some insight about who they were performing these autopsies on or dissecting. Do you want to call it?
Yes, I'm going to call it. The time is 20:57. That is 8:57 for all you non-military, non-medical folks. I have to go kiss a cat. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening. And if you enjoyed it, let us know. And we'll see you here next week. Bye.
Bye.